Does this count as a repaints Palooza Tuza? I'm gonna count it as a Tuza. Quick, what do you get when you combine a mediocre shell former that got away with it by being generally high quality, and one of the figures that I put on the worst list of 2021, with a few more accessories minus the blast effects, but then you just got in there real deep and wiped yourself with the quality control? You get the ability to charge double for the more expensive figure in the set. Welcome to the A Hero is Born box set, Alpha Trion and Orion packs. Every time we think we're out of wave 3, they pull us right back in. Okay, so giving this set its just due, Alpha Trion looks pretty great. I mean, all the colors are kind of the ugliest versions of themselves they could be, but they're the accurate ones. And they do give him an out-of-style grandpa vibe, which was absolutely what this dude was supposed to be. This old wizard from the 70s who's trying to look hip for the 80s but just winds up looking ridiculous has never had a toy that looked this much like himself. Interestingly, they doubled down on the open claw hands. He still comes with a gun, so anytime he holds it, it looks like he's in the middle of surrendering in a TV show. So, he looks good, but he feels shitty. I've never quite run into this before, but the joints are inconsistent. And I don't mean like some of them are tight and some of them are loose. All the joints are both tight and loose at the same time. And they're rough as hell too. Well, I say that, but the thighs are just a floppy mess. However, take the shoulders for example. As you move them, they grind, and it goes tight from here to here, loose to here, tight again, and then it's a little loose right at the top. Then you try to bring the arm back down, and the whole shoulder assembly comes with it every time, which was not a problem on the original Scourge version of this mold. The elbows are much the same way, but they're a little weaker than they are strong, though at least this time the hands will rotate without snapping off. I guess Hasbro finally learned their lesson to not fill that part full of glue or something. Speaking of the arms, mine had some damage out of the box. Like, how the hell did you ding up your inner elbow, dude? That's an impressively weird place for a figure to get injured. Then you have Orion Pax, and he has never looked more Paxy. Like seriously, I count so many abs on this dude. He's got like 4 big ones up here, and then a space with like 6 below that. I want to know what this man's workout regiment is. My boy skipped leg and arm day all his life because every day is ab day. However, despite looking easily the most like Orion Pax out of any official figure ever, I would take the Power of the Prime's Digivolving one over this without question. I don't know if it shows up on camera, but the plastic looks real crappy. It's chalky and cheap looking, and let me tell ya, that's because it is. This thing is flimsier than hell. You thought Alpha Trion was bad. Oh, you sweet summer child. This was a mold that already had problems holding together, which hilariously, this is slightly better in those regards. Slightly. Very slightly. But now new parts want to pop off all the time. The first time I transformed this guy to vehicle and back, I popped off the whole shoulder once, and the knee-high boots 3 times total. This was not a problem the original figure had. I didn't even realize it was something I should be concerned could happen. On this version, these parts are absolute anarchists. You can't control me! I will be free! These are held on by tiny mouse people prayers. They're really easy to put back on, but they're so much more frustrating than they should have been. The Alpha Trion has parts like that too, but they aren't as inescapable or necessary. Gotta love the blue dong on Orion Pax. That's how you know he's gonna grow up into Optimus. His dick is staring at me, and I don't care for it. His joints are also their own variety of weird now. They kind of snap into one of a few locations, and it's not just at the ends. Like the left arm snaps into both the 0 and 100%, but it also does it at like the 80%, not the 50, it's most of the way bent by the time it wants to stop. On closer inspection, this isn't as accurate as I initially thought. It gives off the impression of the character, but it gets some weird details wrong. Like, you gotta love the slivers of white beneath his elbows that are taking the place of his cream-colored joints from the show, but that's far less egregious than giving him the blue abs, when Orion is supposed to have a giant white fanny pack. No wonder he's a nerd in some continuities. They did at least try to give this thing the shoe soles he's supposed to have. And where is his shoulder pimples? Floro Deary loved him some shoulder pimples, and they're gone now. Look, I don't mean to be too harsh to this one. I do feel like the retooler had a good amount of passion for doing this right. But at the end of the day, Hasbro cheaped out on the materials in the build, so it wound up flawed. Anyone else notice that the box art has his leg coming off like the toy loves to have happen? As for the head sculpts, both of these actively rule. Alpha Trion looks basically perfect, rocking this clearly defined and picked out beard, which is shockingly made out of hard plastic and not rubber. He's got a huge variety of paint on his head overall, with the white, cream, blue, and purple. They went to town on the paint budget, it seems, so at least not everything was cheaped out on. And that allowed them to do stuff like give him his weird 80s as hell glasses, that I think are supposed to make him look mysterious, but just make him look like a wannabe member of a new wave band. Which, you know, kudos to him. He's living his best life. And honestly, it's a fun and unique detail for this old weirdo to have. The sculpt is great, it's even got the old man lines in the face, and they went out of their way to retool the neck and center chest too, giving him a cravat that looks like he stumbled out in the morning to grab the paper wearing his bathrobe. All in all, a killer head sculpt for Alpha Trion. Pax, on the other hand, is great, but feels like a cheat. Because it is. Because it's flat out ripping off the head that came with the Power of the Prime's upgrade Orion Pax. Which, ironically, is the cooler looking, better feeling, bigger than either of them, more impressive figure that costs less than these two, but also has the superpower to triple in size and become an old leader. It's hilarious because Power of the Primes and the Prime Wars trilogy in general has become synonymous with a lack of effort and quality. But you know, some of us actually remember things a little more clearly, and honestly, I don't think y'all remember those lines very well. Or maybe you're just a bunch of ingrates. Anyways, this is just that head again, but with the trailer hitch deleted off the back and with added light piping that they deleted as well by painting over. I don't understand this habit. I'm all for not having light piping, please, but at the same time, why add it, then remove it? I know Cup had it, but this is an entirely different head, and there's no other clear plastic on this figure, unless maybe 100% of the painted back panel that doesn't like to stay tabbed in is actually clear plastic. That's exactly what it is, isn't it? It's a good head, it's just stolen, smaller, and worse. It's even got the ear holes that the other one had. I will say that the new muted colors makes him look a little less gaunt, but overall I'd say that these two look pretty great in robot mode. Comparisons with the older figures notwithstanding, they clearly had a degree of love and effort put into both the sculpts and the paint. However, that has not extended into the materials and the quality control. Alpha Trion is definitely the less problematic of the two, and the one who it's harder to get a good figure of, but Pax is falling apart and doesn't look nearly as nice. And when you put it up against its older brother in the POTP figure, even with that thing's penchant for using crappy stickers, this one is just falling short on the looks and quality. This actually comes with a couple new accessories, so I do have something to talk about here. Both come with the guns that the original figures got, and Orion's gun looks pretty stupid in red. Pax also got his juice box, which should have been cast in pink plastic rather than the white. Oh, is this why the figure has the light piping? Why did they bother with this when they didn't give us the far more useful effect for Scourge's gun? They also come with Vector Sigma, a stand for it, and its key, which does plug in, and you know what? This part is well handled. It looks good, and it's something I did find myself needing. I do appreciate this particular accessory a lot. Though I don't know how many of you are going to care about this particular one, and man is it a bitch to get the key back out. So I'll say that the accessories are really good, even if we're now missing the blast effects. So normally I wouldn't go over posability since I already covered it, but now I'm having too much fun with the surprise review of the Power of the Primes figure, so let's just stay on this for a while. Both Paxes have a horrific head tilt down, little more side to side on the new guy. New guy's arms go almost straight up. Power of the Primes pulls less than a 90, but unlike the Legacy figure, this has forwards butterflies. Like 130-degree elbows on the new guy, which to be fair is pretty good. Maximum elbows on the Power of the Primes. No wrists, sword-wielding wrists on the Power of the Primes, but no waist on him, unfortunately. Also, I don't know why they gave it the worst fake ab crunch of all time. Legs are unimpeded in all directions on the Legacy and have a real chance of popping off. Legs are super unimpeded forwards, but are pretty impeded back into the side and also have a real chance of popping off on the POTP. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Slightly less than 90 knees on the new guy, slightly more on the old, feet with a useless toe down and a pivot, feet with a useful toe down and no pivot. And both these guys generally put the Trion to shame. So yeah, once again, I think people are underestimating the Power of the Primes figure. It was just a legitimately good Orion Pax that actually looked cooler than the new one and posed a bit better. Plus, it also transforms way better. This isn't amazing, it's a little too simple honestly, and the end result is a yeesh, but it's actually fun. You cannot say the same for the 86 Cup. This sucks, it's unfun, it would be unfun if it didn't want to fall apart at every turn, and it's even harder to get back apart. Alpha Trion is better than that, but worse than the Scourge, as the new sculpt resists you in some weird ways, and leads to parts not reaching each other quite as easily as they should. And the end results are a legendarily giant pile of poo-poo. This is supposed to be Optimus's truck mode, but this looks more like its defiled remains after Megatron worked out all of his frustrations on Optimus's corpse. Then you got Orion Pax, and this ain't right either. It's just Cup's alt mode, and ironically, the Titan's Return Cup is actually more like the alt mode he's supposed to have, minus the trailer, so that's 2 wins for the Prime Wars trilogy. And then Alpha Trion is both working out in some interesting ways and failing in some dumb ones. I like all the extra painting and the new sculpting they gave him to change up the alt mode a bit and grant him a cockpit, and I love how the head integrates with the vehicle mode better than ever. Scourge always clearly had a head on his roof, but Alpha Trion just kind of disappears into his weird space surfboard form, which is what most depictions tend to give him. Sure, it's still on the roof, but it's all blended together in such a way that it actually does look ornamental now. So, from the top, this looks better than before, but on the underside, I've never quite seen anything like this. I feel like they didn't take any of the new sculpting into account. So, there isn't a lot of space for everything to fit together anymore. You can get this looking almost perfect, but as many times as I've tried, I've failed like half of them. The wing extensions won't sit flat, the sides won't clip together and end up crooked, and I have no idea why. Sometimes it just works, sometimes it doesn't, and what's different? I don't know. Interjection from the future! I figured it out while filming the video. The problem is the retooled collar piece being too tall. The front of the surfboard gets stuck behind it, which makes everything fucky. Be careful when collapsing the back wings to get around it. So, if you're thinking about buying this set, just get the Power of the Prime's Optimus. It's better, it just is. And the fact that it turns into a supersized Optimus Prime mech is tons of fun. But you should really only do that if what you are after is the Orion Pax. If you want an Alpha Trion, this is easily your best option. This is a character not even third party really touches, and your only other option is like the Titan's Return one, which was very weird. Somehow, the shit-tacular red line hasn't covered this dude, because I guess it's only allowed to have bad ideas, so if you really want this guy, this is kinda what you have to work with. And to be clear, if the QC weren't so bad, I'd actually wholeheartedly recommend this set. I mean, I'd say probably wait for it to get a little cheaper because they're ripping you off a small amount, but the price isn't painful considering the Vector Sigma and all. It's just, man, these feel shitty, and have difficulty holding together that they probably shouldn't. I'm not worried that they're gonna break on you or anything, they're just frustrating to handle. But even though the cut mold made my worst of year list in 2021, it wasn't because it's awful. There just weren't enough awful figures that year to protect the mildly disappointing ones. And I do like the Scourge mold. The base figures are like a 5 and a 6 out of 10 respectively. But I'd say that were it not for the QC, the Tryon would at least be elevated to like a 7. The set is too expensive, but not to the point where I think you'll feel overly burned if you get it. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.